let me start out just simply setting the table, talking about TCPA. So TCPA is the Telephone Consumer Protection Act. It's a federal law that applies to any marketer, regardless of industry. But today we're talking about real estate, and it was enacted over 30 years ago in 1991. The basis of it is just to make sure that people aren't getting unwanted calls, texts, used to be unwanted faxes. And just to make sure that consumers' privacy is respected, and to make sure that marketers are doing things in a way that is in alignment with what the TCPA says. Now, when it comes to real estate agents, there's really three things that you should be concerned about. Number one is what's called written consent, or prior express written consent. And that's something that everyone who wants to use any sort of automated tool to do their outreach, whether it be through phone calls with auto dialers, multi-line dialers, through text with mass texting platforms, whether it be AI, that you want to use AI assistance for cold calling, any of those things require prior express written consent from the recipient. There's no gray area there. Either you have it or you don't. And if you don't have it, you can't use those things to call the phone number that you have. Second thing you should be aware of as a real estate agent is the do not call list. Pretty simple. If a number's on the do not call list and you don't have prior express written consent, you are not allowed to call or text that phone number. There's very, very, very few exceptions. There's a small carve out for an FSBO if you're actually representing somebody who wants to purchase that property. But beyond that, there's very few and limited circumstances where if a number is on a do not call list, that you can call them without that prior express written consent.
Boyd,
now, let me back up a little bit.
Before you continue, Boyd, yeah. I want to stop you because you got a lot of information. I want to break this into little chunks. Let's talk about the do not call list. I remember when that came out years and years ago, and I'm mentioning this for people that think like me.
Yep.
Okay. And that's not a good way to, you know what I mean? Like John was saying, we've operated in the gray, right? I mean, they're on every dialer. You can scrub every list, every legitimate dialer out there. You can scrub your list against the do not call list. And then you're left with whatever you're left with. But I'm not going to say names, but I know, let's say hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of real estate agents who call and they blow through the list, and there's no issues. I'm on the list and I probably get 3 or 4 or 5 calls from insurance companies, and I'm on the list. I don't know how, I was counting an average of 30 text messages from Trump, per day. I mean, I literally I couldn't even, no matter how many times I opted out, I was still getting barraged. And maybe even today, I don't even know. But I had to literally switch my texts up. So I was only seeing texts from people that I had saved in my phone, because I couldn't even get anything done. So I think a lot of people are desensitized from the do not call list and text list because it's been around for a while. What's different now?
Well, there's a couple of things. Number one, I'll mention one thing that you said. With the political season, there is actually a carve out in the TCPA that allows politically subject texts and calls to actually be made, even if you're not on even if you are on the do not call list. And so probably over the last few months, people have seen an increase because of that.
Is there a carve out for the healthcare industry? Because those people are intense.
Oh, no. So if they are offering a good or service, whatever it might be, it's always remained the same. Now, I think the reason that we're seeing more of those types of calls is people are just, number one, they don't care. They're just going to take the risk. They're going to make sure that, they send out their text to their 10,000 person list and just hope that nobody turns them in. Number two, I think the automated tools that are available today are even better at masking the identity of the person. So there's less risk for them in terms of, hey, well, I got your phone number and now I know who you are, so I can send a demand letter to you, or I can work with an attorney, or I can go to the FTC website and turn you in. It's not as easy as it maybe has been in the past to get someone in hot water for doing that. And then finally, I just think that, the availability of just, getting numbers through data brokers who are just selling that information and collecting the information, whether it be through a website, through social media, that's increased. And I think that's why we're seeing a lot more. Now, I think these new rules that we're going to be talking about from the FCC is in part a response to that. Of course, I don't think you're ever going to see a situation where your number's on the do not call list, so you'll never get calls again from people soliciting because you're on that list. I think there's always going to be people taking the risk, but the risk is pretty big. And especially in real estate now, we've got plaintiffs' attorneys targeting our brokerage, eXp Realty, targeting other brokerages, targeting our agents and saying, look, I know these guys are engaging in practices. You know, they'll load up 300-400 numbers of expired listings. They won't check the do not call list, and they'll set their auto dialer and start dialing out. We know they're going to do that. We know once they slip up, we have somebody ready and waiting to send them a demand letter, be part of a class action suit, and we're going to get a lot of money. And eXp has been involved with that many times in terms of on the receiving end of complaints. Our agents have as well. And so what we're trying to do is get the word out of how you can continue to engage in these marketing practices without receiving those demand letters or being named in a lawsuit.